Hi everybody, this is the Baseball Hut, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the people's champion, your host, the Hut, and of course, welcome back to the Baseball Hut, where this has sort of become like the complete department for anyone that's a Met fan on YouTube. Now, I would mention that Steve Cohen did a press conference, just took questions from reporters for about 25 minutes, but before we get into this video, of course, I need you to subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and like the video, and leave comments. I read all the comments, good, bad, or indifferent. But, earlier this afternoon, the Mets brought Steve Cohen out, and he talked about how disappointed he is in the season. He still believes in the team. He said emphatically that he was not going to fire Billy Epler and Buck Showalter. So we're going to have to sort of move on from that. If the owner says he's not doing it, then we're going to have to talk about other things, which is fine with me. But he did say that he is trying to find a president of baseball operations, which he's been trying to get really for many years now, since Sandy Alderson retired, and they just wanted to get a new voice in there, a younger person. He did mention, which I thought was interesting, he wants somebody with experience. So keep an eye on three guys. These three guys I was thinking about. One, Billy Beane, which I don't think that's realistic at this point, because I think his kids are still in school. They're young, his twin girls. Two, David Stearns from Milwaukee. David Stearns, obviously, his contract is up. Mets can't really talk to him until that contract is up. There have been all kinds of rumors over the last few weeks that they're going to pursue him in the offseason, make him the big boss here. A third guy to keep an eye on, and I'm just throwing these two names randomly, Bean and Theo Epstein, out there just for the hell of it. Billy Bean, we know, he's a Hall of Fame executive. He's working for Major League Baseball right now. That's a guy to keep an eye on. That's a guy, he could fix it. There's one guy of the three of those guys that could fix this problem here of winning. That's it. He's the guy. But be that as it may, I just want to throw that out there. So, Steve has talked about trying to find somebody that's going to take over and do a job at the top of the organization. But he said, and I thought it was interesting, I never really gave it much thought, maybe I have mentioned it, that you can't hire good talent if you're firing people impulsively, especially if you have multi-year contracts, which Buck is in the second year of his third year of a 3-year contract. Billy Epler's in the second year of a 4-year contract. That's the one thing I've been sort of harping against in terms of getting rid of them, because the Mets have had a lot of instability here over the last really since 2017. They've had a lot of managers here. We had, since Terry Collins retired, Mickey Callaway, Carlos Beltran, Luis Rojas, and we've had Buck Showalter. We've had 4 managers since 2017. That's 4 managers in 6 years. That's a lot. That's a lot. And we've had a lot of general managers here. We've had Brodie Van Wagenen. We had Zach Scott. We've had Brad Porter, Zach Porter, Brad Porter, what the hell his name was. He wasn't here very long. And we've had Billy Epler. That's 4 general managers since 2020. That's a lot. That's a lot of turnover, because it's not just it's not just bringing in these different heads of departments and stuff. They also bring in their own people. So it's a lot of flux, a lot of instability. You don't necessarily want to have that kind of instability in an organization. Now, I've gone in the opposite direction, because the owner hasn't said anything up until really today. So, and I know a lot of people have been very upset about the way the manager has been running this team. They look very lackluster. He's not given answers that he doesn't like being. I'm very surprised that Showalter doesn't want to be challenged by the media. I've been very surprised by that. So we've seen some things I've not really liked. I didn't really care for some of the decisions by the general manager, Billy Epler. I'm very irritated about the way this pitching staff has been put together, particularly the bullpen. He didn't really spend a lot of money on the bullpen. He was more interested in bringing in pieces that were interchangeable guys that they could send down in the minors, bring them up instead of bringing in quality arms. That's kind of going in a rather cheap way. If you're spending $350 million, what's the big deal spending another $20-25 million on a really good bullpen? Now we know with the bullpen, they took a massive hit with Edwin Diaz being out. But the idea that Epler's done a great job. One thing I was annoyed by what Steve said was that he was lucky to bring in Billy Epler. He didn't. He did a terrible job with the Angels. He got fired. So the idea that you're lucky to get him, well, I wouldn't go that far. Now when they bring in a new president of baseball operations, he might not want to keep Billy here long. I mean, he might feel, I don't want Billy here. Can we move him out and bring some other general manager? That's a possibility. We'll have to find out. That's for later on. Now, the one thing I will mention is that Steve said everything is on these players. These players have to perform. You're making $350 million. You have to perform. Jeff McNeil has to be a batting champion. Okay? I know Francisco Lindor has great numbers, but he has to do better. He's got to do better late in the game. He's got to do better when the Mets really need him in the clutch. He has to do more. Pete Alonso has to turn his season around in terms of just his batting average. Get that batting average back up to where it needs to be. This team is underperforming. The pitching staff is a disaster right now. I mean, Scherzer has picked up a little bit. Verlander has been uneven. They're going to get Quintana back soon. Quintana's going to make one more start for Syracuse. Then he's going to come back. David Peterson pitched pretty good on Tuesday. It wasn't against a very hard-hitting team. We'll have to keep our eye on him in terms of where he is. I wasn't too impressed with his first inning. His first inning was a real struggle. But, that's not a great offense. The Brewers don't have a good... They have great bullpen. They play really good defense. That's why they're playing as well as they are. That's why their record is as good as it is. But their offense stinks. But the pitching is a major issue, and that is on Epler. Now, a lot of the players that have been on this team, Pete Alonso was here, Jeff McNeil was here, Lindor was brought in by Porter, wasn't Billy. Brett Beatty was a Van Wagenen guy. I would mention Alvarez is a Van Wagenen guy. Brandon Nimmo is a Sandy Olsen guy, which takes me to a very important part of this Mets organization. The Met farm system is not as good as it was, say, 3 or 4 months ago. Now, I would mention I have a channel called Prospect Hub, which I've been doing videos on the last week and a half. I'll put the link in the description. Hope you subscribe to it. I haven't done a video in a couple of days. I'll be cranking that up in the next few days. Been busy working, but this farm system I'm very concerned about because, first of all, in 2021 they didn't have a good draft. They had a very good draft last year. I expect them to have a good draft this year. But this farm system, it does not have a lot of pitching in it. And they're going to get very bare when it comes to positional players. The big positional player the Mets have is Kevin Parada. He's one of the best catching prospects in baseball right now. Maybe 2 or 3 right now. He might be, the way he's playing right now, he's killing it in Brooklyn right now. But he's a few years away. Ronnie Mauricio, he's sort of an uneven prospect. A lot of Major League scouts are not really impressed with him. I know we talk about him a lot. I'm just giving it to you straight here. The Met farm system is probably not going to produce a hell of a lot within the next year or two. So that's why if this team does not perform well between now and August 1st, Steve did say that they will reassess things if they don't turn this around. Even if they turn this around, next year could be tough too because of the fact that there is no pitching in this farm system currently ready to help the team out. Now, if this team doesn't do well in the next month, maybe they move Canna, maybe they move Vogelback, maybe they move a bunch of these veteran guys. Maybe even they take the hit on the money and move Scherzer. I did a video on him earlier on the Baseball Hut 2, and I suggest you subscribe to the Baseball Hut 2. I'll put the link into there and to the description of this video again. The Mets, I know, are willing to take a hit in terms of payroll. Are they willing to pull the chute on a Scherzer deal? Steve said he hasn't been broached on it. He's not prepared to talk about that right now. Now, the rumor is about Scherzer that he's willing to waive his no-trade clause to go to a team that has a chance to win. We'll see where that develops and where that goes. But this farm system needs an infusion of young talent. Now we're going to have the draft in a couple of weeks. That draft, which I've talked about in the baseball too, believe it or not, is not a very deep pitching draft. Okay? Even the top pitcher in that draft, Paul Skeens, is not considered. There's some question about where he falls in line, what his future is in the majors. So that's not a very good pitching draft. It really isn't. It's a very good shortstop draft. It's a very good college bat draft. But it's not a very good pitching draft. So the Mets aren't going to be bringing any big pitchers, and they don't have a pick until 32nd in this draft. Because of the whole thing with the competitive tax penalty that they took because they spent so much money this offseason. So that's my major concern long term for the next 2-3 years, is that there's not a lot of talent that is currently in the Mets farm system. We know about Mike Vasil. He's probably at best a number 3 starter. Dominic Hamill's probably a 4th starter at best. Christian Scott is years away. He's probably nothing more than a number 3 starter. From what I can tell, and pitchers are weird. Sometimes a pitcher can come out of nowhere and become an ace, like, say, Jacob deGrom, or even David Cohen, if you remember as far back as that. Guys can come out of nowhere to be a big pitcher. But right now, the Mets do not have a big pitcher in this farm system that can come in here in another year or two and establish himself, as another great player, another great pitcher. So that is a concern. And, before the season, the Mets were kind of like middle of the road in terms of where they were as a farm system. But because players like Alvarez and Beatty and Vientos haven't played now a lot in the majors, they've what they call graduate. So they're off the minor league lists. So the Mets now, in terms of where they are, they're probably in the top. They're probably in the bottom. The bottom third in terms of farm systems. So I'm very concerned. I mean, this should be a concern to you too. Now we know that they invest a lot of money behind the scenes. Steve Cohen mentioned a lot of that about the money that they're investing in terms of. I guess they talked about a pitching lab. I've never heard of that before. And there's a lot of things that they've invested a lot of. And he is right. When they took over the farm system and they took over this team, there wasn't a lot of pitching in this system. The Mets have really not developed anything since 2015, 2016. That's a long time. I mean, really impact pitchers of a big note. I can go down the list. DeGrom, Harvey, Syndergaard, Matz, Seth Lugo, Robert Gsellman. I mean, guys like this, they were able to pump into the major league roster. They don't have that right now. Okay? Now, if they don't play well, they're going to have to start bringing in talent for this team. And, they have to do that. It is imperative that they do that. Now, where are the Mets right now? Well, they're 16 and a half games behind the Braves. They're not catching the Braves. That's not happening. They're 8.5 games behind the third wild card spot. 8.5 games behind. Now, Steve mentioned that, that the last few years teams have come back from that. But watching this team, that unless they turn this around, they have to turn it around now. They have to win on Wednesday, they have to win Thursday. They're going to have a tough, next 9 games is going to be really tough. They're going to be playing the Giants this weekend. The Giants are good. They've had a good year. Then they go on the road trip to Arizona and San Diego. They're going to be playing the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks are in first place with a very good young team. And they're going to San Diego, which we know historically the Mets do not play well in San Diego. And then we get to the All-Star break. And then we have a few weeks after that the trading deadline. But this team has to do it tonight. They have to do it Wednesday and Thursday. And they got to kick it in gear. But this next 10 games is not going to be easy, And they put themselves in such a deep hole. It is difficult. And I'm going to be honest with you. I am not optimistic about this group, okay? And I'm not worried about, I know Steve said that they played a crisp game on Tuesday, but it's against a bad Brewers offense. I'm usually very much an optimistic person, but I've seen a lot of teams, and not just the New York Mets, a lot of teams that have struggled to find their way in a season. This is very similar to all the things I've seen over the years of following sports. And it doesn't matter what the sport is. Football, basketball, hockey, you know, they all kind of have the same struggles, like one day they get pitching, but they don't hit. Then the next day they have a good game, the bullpen blows it. The next day they score 10 runs, they lose 11-10. The Mets have the most losses, have one of the worst records for a team that has scored a lot of runs. They have one game over 500 in the games they've scored 6 or more runs. That's pathetic. That should be over 75-80% of the games that you win. So the pitching is so bad on this team. Okay, it's funny. I would mention this. And I was thinking about this as a funny kind of thing to say. Jeff Brigham, they brought him in. I call him Jeff Brigham. I don't call him Jeff Brigham. I call him Jeff Brigham. Jeff Brigham. They should have not brought him in the game to begin with, and they should. I was thinking when he wasn't pitching well in that 8th inning on Tuesday, bring in someone else. Bring him out and bring in someone else. But I thought it was important that Steve came out. He does listen to us. He knows what we're going through because he's going through the same thing. But that's all I have to say right now. But I appreciate the time you take to watch the videos. Thank you for watching the Baseball Hut. Again, I had the Prospect Hut. I'll put the link in. Please subscribe to that. And of course, please subscribe to Baseball Hut too. We're doing great things there. Very different stuff there. I really go after the team. I'll talk about anything on there, as long as it's baseball or even college baseball a little bit. But of course, please subscribe to the Baseball Hut too. The channel's getting awfully close to 1,000 subs. I can't thank you enough if you've going over there and subbed. And of course, thank you for watching the Baseball Hut. And we're getting awfully close to 4,000 subscribers here. And we should be getting there by the end of this month, by the end of July. And I thank you for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you later.